Hi everyone, Noah Zerbe here. This is one in a series of short videos where we introduce the foundational concepts to the study of international relations. These are topics that we'll come back to and make use of regularly throughout the course. In this video, we look at the relationship between states and nations. In this video, we look at the relationship between states and nations. Before we get started, remember that the state is that institution that possesses a permanent population, a defined territory, a government, and has the capacity to enter into relations with other states. So what's a nation? If states are comprised of a group of people, a population, that population might be said to be a nation. More concretely, a nation can be thought of as a group of people who share a common perceived identity. This common identity might be rooted in history, language, religion, culture, ethnicity, or a host of other factors, though none of these are necessarily determinant of nationhood. Nationhood is the basis for statehood. In 1918, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson outlined his 14 points, which provided the basis of peace negotiations at the end of World War I, the Peace of Versailles. We'll look at this speech and its implications in greater detail in a few weeks, but for now you should know that one of the central principles outlined in that speech was the principle of national self-determination. The idea that ideally a nation and a state should correspond. That is, the boundaries of the nation should correspond with the boundaries of the state, and that the legitimacy of the state was rooted in the right of the people of that state to determine their own collective future. That is, the principle of national self-determination. We can think of it this way. When we're thinking of nation-states, the boundaries of the state and the nation should completely and wholly overlap. Each state is a nation, each nation is a state. Again, this situation is usually referred to as the nation-state, and is considered the ideal form in international relations. Perhaps the best example of this is Japan, where the state boundaries and national identities closely overlap. Other nation-states might include Iceland or Portugal. While the nation-state is considered the ideal theoretical form, it's also incredibly uncommon. Instead, we have multiple alternative forms of the relation between states and nations. We have multinational states, where a single state is comprised of multiple national identities. This is probably the most common form. We can think of examples like Russia, where Russians are the ethnic majority, but numerous other groups also exist. Or Belgium, which is divided between the Flemish, the Wallonians, and the Germans. Or Nigeria, which is home to about 250 distinct ethnic groups. Or India, or the United Kingdom, or countless others. We also have multi-state nations. Here, a single national group is divided across multiple geographic states. We can think of the Tutsi in Burundi and Rwanda today, or historically Germans being divided across Germany, Belgium, and Poland prior to World War II. As you might surmise, this situation exists and is often a contributing factor to conflict within and between states. And finally, we also have stateless nations, that is, nations who share a common identity but which lack a state home. Examples here might include the Kurds, who are divided across Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey, but who lack a common national homeland. The Catalan population of northern Spain and southern France is similarly often thought of as a stateless nation, as are the Basque. So now that we've covered states and nations, let's do a little informal quiz. For each example I give you, tell me whether or not it's a state. Is the United States a state? Yes, it possesses a permanent population, has a defined territory, a government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. It's also recognized by other states as being a state itself, and it possesses sovereignty or supreme decision-making authority. That's a pretty easy one. What about California? Is California a state? No, California is not a state in the sense that we mean in global politics. This is sometimes confusing for American students of international relations, since in the U.S. we use the term state to describe subnational units that in other countries are often referred to as provinces or territories. This is a historical anomaly resulting from the formation of the United States, originally a union of independent states under the Articles of Confederation, a document which preceded the U.S. Constitution. But while California possesses a population, has a defined territory and government, it is not recognized by other states as being a state, and it does not possess sovereignty or supreme decision-making authority. The decisions made by the state legislature can be overturned by federal courts and overwritten by federal laws in specific areas. As a result, while we use the term state in the United States, California and the other American states are not states in the international relations sense of the term. What about Palestine? Is Palestine a state? Now we're getting into some trickier examples. Palestine has a population, a nation, territory, government, and is recognized by the more than 130 other member states of the United Nations, and it itself is also recognized as an observer state of the United Nations. But its sovereignty is contested by Israel, and the capacity of the Palestinian Authority to exercise that supreme decision-making authority over its territory is circumscribed. Taiwan is actually in a pretty similar position to Palestine. It's recognized by a limited number of states and is not a member of the United Nations, having been expelled in 1971 when the Chinese seat was transferred to the People's Republic of China. Since then, it has maintained observer status in some UN bodies, but its application for membership would clearly be blocked by the People's Republic of China. Taiwan nevertheless claims sovereignty and exercises supreme decision-making authority over the island of Taiwan, but is it a state? And what about Kurdistan, the historical homeland of the Kurdish people we referenced earlier? It occupies a region that spans southern Turkey, northern Syria and Iraq, and northwestern Iran, and the Kurds are very clearly a nation, a group of people with that shared history, culture, and identity, but is Kurdistan a state? This one is probably fairly straightforward no. While the Kurds would like to establish an independent state, in its current political formation, Kurdistan is not recognized by other states or the United Nations, and it does not possess sovereignty. It's therefore probably not a state. And finally, what about Iraq? Is Iraq a state? In the legal sense, it meets all the criteria for statehood outlined in the Montevideo Convention and is recognized by other states. But does it possess sovereignty? The presence of American troops in Iraq suggests that Iraqi sovereignty is circumscribed in critical ways. Nevertheless, like other countries with limited de facto sovereignty, Iraq possesses de jure sovereignty and is therefore considered a state. That concludes our very brief introduction to states and nations. Be sure to check out the other foundational videos which look at topics like anarchy, collective goods, and levels of analysis. Thanks everyone. Bye.